Hello, amazing ladies, and welcome to the HerStory podcast. I am your host, Kylie King, the founder of Australian Ladies in Business Initiative. And today I am so excited to be joined by the amazing Khadine Aharon of Embrace Empowerment. And not only does she run an amazing business, but she was the ALIBI Awards 2022 winner for the Phoenix Award. So I'm so happy you're here. Thank you for joining me.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's so exciting. I'm still
So,
excited about the award, even though it was almost a year ago.
how fast did that year go, though?
I don't know. Where did it go to? It's like it
No.
had its own legs and went running.
Yeah, it did. I hope it slows down though. I don't, it's just going by way too quickly. So,
Yeah.
let's get started. The listeners are really keen. Can you introduce yourself and tell us a bit about what you do?
Great. Hi, everybody. My name's Khadine Aharon. Kylie so lovely introduced me. My background's in social work. I'm accredited social worker. I specialize in working with people who are living with or have experienced past trauma, phobias, anxiety, or other life challenges. And I also provide training in emotional freedom techniques all around Australia. Each year I provide scholarships. Last year we provided 14 scholarships to women all around Australia to attend the training for absolutely free, so that they can take the skills and take them to their communities and spread the technique, and so that they can impact trauma on a community level rather than just individual levels.
How beautiful. So for anyone that's listening or watching and might not be aware, what is EFT or emotional freedom technique?
Right. Yeah. So emotional freedom techniques is an evidence-based mind body stress reduction range of techniques. So it's a range of techniques. Often people will watch it online and just think it's just tapping and talking and very basic. And it can be really simple. And yet there's deeper skills to work on deeper trauma and deeper challenges people have in their life. It's different in that it combines Western knowledge of psychology and the Eastern knowledge of the meridian system, which we can identify scientifically now. In the past, people have said the meridian system is all about energy, but we can identify the perivascular system now in the body with all the technology that we have. The modern microscopes can actually identify that along in our system, along with our veins and arteries. It's very similar, just smaller. And it's a really flexible technique in that we can use it on ourselves. We can use it with individual clients. We can use it in group work, which makes it highly flexible and has so many uses.
Well,
And
and
it
you
just
teach that.
excites me.
And
I
you
teach
teach that.
that.
That's
Yeah.
awesome.
And I just become more excited about it. Even after 10 years of doing EFT, I still constantly become more and more excited about it because of the results I see, not just with my clients, but with my students and their clients, and how they use it with their individual clients and communities. The results you just are outstanding. And I love that. It makes me so passionate about sharing it. And when I provide training, I'm impacting more people than just seeing individual clients. And so that's the benefit of providing training, besides the fact that I love providing training.
So what got you started with EFT or with your business?
Wow, that's a big question, actually. So it's a little bit of a story. When I was 25, I was actually a massage practitioner. And I used to work about 50 hours a week. I used to provide massage therapy training as well. And then one day I got this major anxiety attack in the middle of doing a massage treatment. And within a month, I couldn't work anymore. I had a complete emotional and physical crash. And I was later diagnosed with complex PTSD, chronic fatigue syndrome, and fibromyalgia. But for me, it all hit at once. So I went from having a business to not being able to do, if I did the dishes, I wouldn't be able to do anything else for the rest of the day. So I couldn't do my work anymore. So I lost everything pretty much. And I couldn't go from a 50-hour week to nothing. So I enrolled for TAFE to do community services. And I thought, well, how can I help people if I can't massage? And so I was always interested in trauma, and I thought, well, community services is a step towards working more with trauma. And I did that, and I'd fall asleep in class, and it took me twice as long, but I still passed with distinctions, which was the highest at TAFE at that time. I don't know about now. And then I thought, well, what's next? And some silly person told me university was easier than TAFE. And I knew I could get a year off at Sydney Uni because of my marks. And so I thought, well, I'll apply for uni. And then I started failing. I got accepted, but I went from the highest marks to, it would take me 10 attempts to read a single sentence in any of the readings. And it was like my brain was just full of this dense fog, and it was very hard to make sense of words or remember words or connect things together. And I knew something was not right, but my doctor had no insights. And one day I came across this study that compared the healthy brains to the brains of people living with fibromyalgia. And with those MRI studies, they discovered that people with fibromyalgia have between 8 to 12% reduction in grey matter. And they hypothesized that that was due to high cortisol levels. And that was before people were talking about cortisol. It's widely talked about now. With anybody who works with trauma would know about cortisol now. But 10 or more years ago, nobody really talked about it. None of my lecturers had even heard about it. So I became really passionate about finding ways to reduce my cortisol, and I did. One of the ways was to do meditation before I slept, for example. And that enabled me to start thinking more clearly again. And I ended up passing my degree with first class honours after all of that. But when I left uni, I was still on a mission to find ways to reduce cortisol. And one day I came across this thing called EFT, and I thought, what's that? And I read it, and I just knew I had to attend a training. And so at my first training, I chose an event that I thought I'd totally done in the years of counselling since my crash. I had no emotions thinking about it or body reactions, and until we started tapping. And then what happened was all these feelings started coming up physically and emotionally. I thought I was going to vomit. The trainer had to get a bin just in case I vomited. And I thought, wow, I thought I'd totally done that. But all those years of talking about it didn't actually resolve the trauma. And I remember every time I went into the sunlight for the next 3 days afterwards, it was like the cells in my body were starting to wake up as if they'd been asleep for years and were finally waking up. And that's when I got hooked on EFT. So I thought, wow, if this can make such a difference, just attending a training, what difference can it make in my life and in other people's lives? And it's really transformed my life. I was told I'd probably never work again. My levels of PTSD was extremely high. And here I am getting to do what I really love and am passionate to do, and helping other people who have also experienced trauma in their lives.
Wow, what an amazing story.
So sorry, it was a bit long, but
no, that's okay. I think it was such an amazing story to like hear everything you overcome and then found this modality, this thing that really helped you, and then to go, you know what, it helped me so much, I want to just go and share it with everyone. I want to share and take that to everyone. It's amazing.
Yeah, well, it helped me reduce my symptoms of living with complex PTSD. It helped me transform my physical health. It certainly improved that. It helped me transform my relationship with my mum so that I can look after her without feeling the resentment I once used to. Once I was away for the weekend, I got a call to say, oh, your mum's in hospital. She's got a possible heart attack. And my first internal reaction was, oh, you're ruining my fun again. And I thought, Khadine, where's this coming from? Because it was about the 5th time this year that I'd had that similar call. And I was getting a bit fed up with it. And so I did tapping on myself. And I'm like, of course I feel resentful, because as a child, I was the adult. I was the one looking after everyone, including my mum. And so I was able to tap on those feelings of resentment that actually started as a child. And now I don't feel resentment at all. My mum is now in a nursing home. She's near me. And, I'm her primary carer outside of the nursing home. And I was able to be with her through her cancer treatment and be the only one there for her, even during lockdowns. And I could do it all because I had done EFT.
Amazing. It sounds like a magical modality.
Sometimes it seems like that. Sometimes the results can be so quick. It is like magic. And in EFT, there's this statement called it's a 1-minute wonder. So an example of a 1-minute wonder is I was at a business networking once and I had 10 minutes to talk about EFT. And out of the people who volunteered for a demonstration, I asked for people with pain because pain everyone can identify with. And out of the people who volunteered, I asked for someone I chose someone whose pain was from an accident, because then I knew where it was specifically from rather than just waking up with a sore neck. And so the person who volunteered was an ex-paramedic. It had acquired brain injury. It had a hip replacement and a very severe PTSD. He'd been seeing a psychologist for 5 years for his PTSD with no results. When I asked him, how intense is your feelings of discomfort right now? And he was shaking and teary, just talking about this accident. He was a 10 plus out of 10. Wow. And I had 5 minutes to work with him. In 5 minutes, he was a 0.
Oh, wow.
0 for the first time in 5 years. And because he had volunteered, I said, oh, I really appreciate that you volunteered and I want to make sure you're okay. So come and have a full session with me and I won't charge you. And he came back 2 weeks later and the highest level of distress was a 3 out of 10 in that time.
It's amazing.
And so we resolved that in one session and he doesn't respond to any mention of that accident anymore. No more PTSD.
That's incredible.
Yes, it's not always that quick, obviously, particularly if someone has many traumas. But for him, it was one very specific trauma. So it was very easy to eliminate the trauma, allow the body to release that trauma, which is the key. We store trauma in our bodies. It's the mind thing. It might impact our minds, but we store it in our body. And we don't know what the impact of that is until we do a process like EFT, which releases the trauma from the body. It also allows the fight or flight system to release its triggers in relation to that trauma, which is why people can mention that accident or he can talk about it now and he's not triggered. His fight or flight system doesn't come in, because when you do EFT well, it allows the fight or flight system to let go of those triggers and to know that it's actually safe. So
in that moment, in those 5 minutes, you literally changed this man's life.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I get to see that. That's why it's so exciting, the work I do. I could share so many stories like that. How many of us get to do work with clients where they get to see those transformations and be a part of it?
It's incredible. So what would you say has been your biggest challenge when it comes to business?
Biggest business challenge is always marketing.
Yeah, that comes up a lot in when I've done these. A lot of people have said marketing.
Yeah, marketing is number 1 and my health would be number 2. So I still have to manage my health. So for example, in the last lockdowns, I couldn't sit, stand or walk for 6 months in the middle of the lockdowns. And because I was in one of the 5K zones, I couldn't even have friends come and help. It was a huge challenge to my business. And I'd provide trainings lying down or see clients lying down some of the time. And so I think the biggest challenge is often our own mind game. Yes, we have those other things like the marketing challenges, because social media is always changing and trying to keep up. It feels exhausting. I don't know about you, Kylie, but for me, it's exhausting trying to keep up with how to market. And yet our brains and our own self-talk, health challenges can be the biggest one. And I think that's when we need support. So even I go and have EFT with other practitioners to work on my own stuff, because if we're going to help people with trauma, then we need to do our own work. I think it's really essential.
I completely agree. Yeah, you can't, I think it's a good example to set too when you're telling people, look, I worked and overcame this, and it's proof that it does work, because you can prove it then. And what is it? It's always good to go and work with someone who's, looks after their own shit in a good way. Like
Oh, you want that. You want that.
their stuff, then you want to work with them. So
Right. You don't want to work with someone who doesn't work on their own stuff.
that's exactly it. So that is true. What would you say has been your biggest achievement so far in business?
Well, getting the Phoenix Award was a huge achievement. I was really surprised about that. For me, just to apply was a huge achievement because I normally wouldn't do that. I don't normally put myself out there in that way. So for me, that was a huge achievement. Being able to offer 14 scholarships last year was a huge achievement. The more students I get, the more scholarships I can offer. And so for me, being able to do that, is the ultimate achievement. Being able to support my clients to transform their lives, but there's no great achievement than that. I could list all different things like pieces of paper and stuff, but ultimately the greatest achievement is the results clients get for themselves. I see myself as a navigator and they're the driver, and I just help them for that little part of their journey and helping them to transform their own life. Well, that's the greatest achievement I could ever ask for.
So with these scholarships, they were scholarships for people to come and learn EFT with you, so then they could go and get their own clients and share that amazingness out in the world.
Absolutely.
How incredible.
Yes, and they're full scholarships. So a lot of people will say, oh, we're offering scholarships, but it will only be for half the cost.
Oh, yeah.
Scholarships are a full scholarship. So people get physical manuals sent to them. They get ongoing support. They get monthly peer supervision. They have access to student practice days, includes all their marking, everything. So there's nothing that they need to pay for. And then once they complete the training, they can go and use it, start a practice, or if they already have a practice, they can take it into their communities. Quite a few of the scholarships have gone to remote communities so that people can work with communities who don't normally have access to these type of therapies. Some of them go to women with disabilities who wouldn't be able to afford it, or single mums who would not be able to afford it but are passionate about being able to share it with their kids, for example. So it's a whole range of people who have had access to scholarships. It's not just, oh, you have to be a social worker or you have to be a counsellor. Everybody has a chance. It's just how much of their story they share with us is what it comes down to.
Incredible. That's amazing. So when you started your business, is there any advice you wish someone had given you?
Oh, the biggest advice would be just to follow your passion. Because if you're not passionate about what you do, it's hard to be motivated through the ups and downs of a business. All businesses have the ups and downs, as you know, Kylie. And if you're not passionate about what you do, it's going to be hard to be motivated to do the things you don't necessarily enjoy, yet are essential to building your business. The other thing would be to know that we don't do it by ourselves. We need a team. And so, for example, I have a great virtual assistant. He does a lot of the background stuff for me so I can focus on what I'm good at instead of wasting time doing certificates. It's worth every cent. It saves me money effectively because I'm not wasting that time doing stuff when I could be seeing clients. And so knowing that we don't become successful on our own, I think is the key. So building a great support around you, whether that's having VAs or having really good business mentoring or really good supervision, going to different trainings, really important to know you don't create success by yourself. It's a team effort.
That's great advice. So what would be, if you're willing to share, what would be your ultimate goal for your business? Like the big, hairy, scary goal?
Oh, yes. So there's so many. Well, my planning is to be the leading EFT trainer. And we've got quite a few courses coming as well. So at the moment, I provide practitioner training and advanced practitioner training. Soon I'll be offering a training so my students can learn how to set up their own 6 to 8 week program around whatever their niche is. We'll have another training around doing EFT for trauma. I'm thinking about providing a training that's open to everybody about skills for actually working online, because not many people know how to do it. Not many people know that you need to look in the camera rather than the picture for your client or whoever you're engaging with to feel like you're looking at them.
Yes, very true.
Or that we need to have our hands moving when we're online. Because if we're still, people's eyes just get quite bored. No movement, for example, and we have to modulate our voice. So I'm thinking of putting a training together like that so that people find it easier to engage their audience or clients online. So I have many things coming up. It's just growing the college into even bigger, and I'd like to be providing training to organizations in-house about self-care and EFT and all those wonderful things.
Beautiful. It sounds so exciting.
Yes.
It's all happening. So being the EFT head facilitator in Australia, we're just going to say it is now already. So as the Australian head facilitator in EFT, is there a tip you would like to share with anyone that's listening or watching that may help them?
May help them in work or life?
Whatever you choose, Khadine. I'll leave it up to you. You're the Australian head facilitator.
Well, self-care can actually be really easy, Kylie, and people don't realize. So we could even do a simple exercise just for 2 minutes of squeezing your fingers. So when I run free workshops, which I do monthly on different topics of EFT, most of the time we do this exercise where people choose an area of life that gives them stress or anxiety, and they rate it out of 10, how high that is. And then we squeeze the sides of our fingers for just 2 minutes. And you say if I have 10 attendees, 8 of those attendees will have a reduction in just 2 minutes of their stress or anxiety.
Just by squeezing the sides of their fingers?
Just by squeezing the sides of their fingernails. And so self-care doesn't have to be hard or complicated. A lot of people look at EFT and just see it as tapping. Sometimes that can be too stimulating. Like if you've got a migraine, last thing you want to do is tap. But you can squeeze your fingers and you can still help your fight or flight system to calm and regulate and help to reduce those pain levels, or even the emotions associated with the pain. Sometimes the pain is one thing, but then the emotions we feel in relation to the pain is a whole other thing. And so the one simple tip is squeeze your fingers. You can do it anywhere. Nobody would know if you're in a stressful meeting.
That's true. Yes.
And you're squeezing your fingers. You just think you're just playing with your fingers like everybody does, right? Even children can do that. It can be simple.
Beautiful. Thank you for that tip. That's an amazing one. And you're right. No one would notice if you're just squeezing your fingers. No one
would notice.
Yeah. And
a lot of trainers don't teach the finger points.
No, you're right. Whenever I've heard of EFT or when I've had like mini courses in EFT, it's always just been the head tapping or the 6 points, but not the finger stuff. But that one is, I feel it would get more use because it's so people don't notice it rather than you're tapping your head. So
you can use it anywhere, but most trainers don't teach people the finger points because they're not used when they do research. In EFT research, it's a standard set of points. The same as a lot of trainers don't teach there's a point just under the breast area. God forbid women have to touch their breast to actually tap on that point. You know, you wouldn't want to have a woman with large breasts that might have to lift her breast up to tap on her rib cage. Man, that's ridiculous. That's a whole other conversation. So in my training, I teach all of the points, and so it can be extra flexible, and the training is very trauma informed. It's very client focused, and it's holistic because my background is in natural therapies as well as being a social worker, which is very holistic in itself. So the training is very holistic and client centered.
Beautiful. So the tip is to squeeze your fingers in a stressful situation for just 2 minutes. And if we've decided we need to give EFT a go, we want to come and work with you, where do we stalk you, Khadine?
Yes, you can just go to my website, embraceempowerment.com, and everything's there. Everything about the training or the services I offer. If you're interested in finding about the free workshops, just send me an email, because I do those. They're not always on the website, but they're on my emails. So you can join my email list and you'll be notified about the free workshops. There's some happening this week about using EFT for workplace stress, for example. So
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me today and teaching me about finger squeezes and talking and
thanks for
sharing
having
your
me.
story. It's been awesome. So anyone that wants to go and stalk Khadine, go to embraceempowerment.com, and I will pop all the links below. So then you can go over and have a stalk and learn some awesome life-changing modality.
Wonderful. Thank you, Kylie.
Thank you.